The late afternoon sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the quaint streets of Eldridge. Nathan Cole, wrapped in his usual tweed jacket, lingered outside the local high school, watching as the last of his students scattered into the growing dusk. He enjoyed this moment of peace, the silence before heading home, where solitude awaited him alongside piles of ungraded essays. "Hey, Nathan," called a voice from across the parking lot. It was Mike, the school's gym teacher, striding towards him with his characteristic energetic bounce. "Mike, what brings you here so late?" Nathan asked, raising an eyebrow as he locked the school door. "Just finished setting up for tomorrow's soccer match. You coming to watch?" Mike tossed his keys up and caught them with a grin. "Wouldn't miss it," Nathan replied, though both knew he likely wouldn't make it. "So, what's the word on the street? Anything exciting happening in Eldridge tonight?" Same old, but you should swing by the pub tonight. A couple of us are heading down around 8. It'd do you good to come along." Mike nudged him playfully. Nathan chuckled. "Maybe, if those papers grade themselves. But speaking of the word on the street, have you seen the news today? I heard something on the radio about strange reports of lights in the sky last night, all over the state. Aliens, huh?" Mike laughed loudly, slapping Nathan on the back. "Imagine that. Eldridge becomes the first contact point for an interstellar welcome party." "I'm serious, Mike. They're talking about it like it's not just some prank. Military's been awfully quiet about it, too." The two men started walking towards the faculty parking lot, their shoes crunching on the gravel. Come on, Nathan. You know how these things turn out. It's probably just some experimental drone or a weather balloon. You're the history guy. You should focus on dead civilizations, not imaginary invaders," Mike teased. "That's precisely why it's interesting. Historical precedents, my friend. Every time there's a big change, it starts with something unbelievable. And what's more unbelievable than alien visitors?" Nathan argued, a playful spark in his eye. Mike shrugged, conceding the point. "Well, if you start seeing little green men, promise me you'll call me first. All right? Deal. But you have to promise to bring a soccer ball for them. Maybe they're peaceful and just want to play a match," Nathan laughed. The two reached their cars, the setting sun now painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. As Nathan opened his car door, he paused and looked back at Mike, who was watching the sunset. "You know, whatever it is, change is constant. If it's not aliens today, it'll be something else tomorrow," Nathan mused aloud. "Deep thoughts from Mr. Cole," Mike smiled. "See you tomorrow, Nathan. And think about the pub, all right?" "I'll give it a shot," Nathan replied, sliding into his car. He watched Mike drive off before pulling out onto the quiet street himself. As he drove, Nathan's mind wandered back to the strange news. The tranquility of his small-town life felt deceptive. Little did he know, it was the quiet before a storm that would turn his world upside down. The evening had settled over Eldridge with a brisk coolness that hinted at the coming of fall. Nathan parked his car outside the local pub, hesitating for a moment as he observed the familiar, comforting glow of the lights inside. He decided to join his colleagues for a drink, a rarity for him, prompted by Mike's encouragement and the unsettling news of the day. As Nathan pushed through the door, the warm noise of friendly chatter washed over him. He spotted Mike at the bar, surrounded by a few other teachers from various departments. "There he is. Thought you'd chicken out, Nathan," Mike called out, waving him over. Nathan managed to smile and made his way through the small crowd, taking the stool next to Mike. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," he replied, the hum of conversations around him slowly settling his nerves. "What's your poison tonight, Nathan?" "The usual," the bartender, a robust man named Jerry, asked with a familiar nod. "Just a beer tonight, Jerry." "Thanks," Nathan responded, his gaze wandering to the television mounted above the bar where a news anchor was talking about the unusual sky sightings. "Looks like your aliens are making headlines, Nathan," teased Tom, the math teacher, nodding towards the TV. Nathan turned his attention to the screen, his interest piqued despite himself. "Yeah, seems like it's not just local chatter anymore." The group's curiosity grew as the anchor detailed witness reports of strange lights and unexplained phenomena in the skies across the globe, not just in their state. The story was gaining traction, The possibility of something larger at play hanging unspoken between the lines of official denials and expert skepticism. You think there's something to it, Nathan? You know, actual aliens? Asked Sarah, the English teacher, her voice a mix of amusement and intrigue. I don't know, but it's odd, right? The pattern of these lights, the silence from the authorities. It feels like something out of a movie, Nathan mused, sipping his beer. Or a government cover-up. Maybe they know more than they're letting on, Mike added, leaning back. I mean, what would we even do if it were true? If we're talking about actual extraterrestrial contact? The question lingered, the group falling into thoughtful silence. Nathan looked around, the faces of his friends showing a mix of skepticism, concern, and excitement, a microcosm of what was likely happening in homes around the world. If they are out there, watching us, I just hope they're friendly, Sarah finally said, breaking the silence. But honestly, I'm more worried about how people would react. Panic, probably. That's a valid point, Nathan agreed. Human history isn't exactly filled with examples of us handling the unknown with calm and grace. True, Tom chimed in. But maybe this is a chance for something new, something better. Could be the jolt humanity needs to pull together, you know? As they continued to discuss the possibilities, the news shifted to live footage from a major city where crowds were gathering. Eyes and cameras turned skyward. The room in the pub grew quieter as patrons turned their attention to the unfolding scene. Suddenly, the live feed showed a brilliant flash of light streaking across the sky, followed by the unmistakable shape of a large, metallic object descending slowly. The crowd outside on the screen erupted into a mixture of cheers and screams. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine as he watched, the reality of the situation settling in. The world was watching, and so was he, as the first undeniable proof of extraterrestrial presence made its debut on global television. This is it, huh? Mike said, his voice a mix of awe and apprehension. It's really happening. Nathan nodded, his thoughts racing. It's happening. And something tells me everything is about to change. Their eyes stayed glued to the screen, the group silently forming a bond in this shared, unprecedented moment. The night no longer seemed just a casual gathering. It had become a vigil, watching as the story of mankind turned a new page. After the unprecedented events broadcast worldwide, Nathan found himself lying awake long into the night. The images of the strange craft descending and the mixed reactions of the crowd replayed in his mind, each detail sharp and unnerving. He rose early, the morning light barely filtering through his curtains, driven by a restless need to understand what was happening. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a message from Mike lighting up the screen. Meet at the park? Need to talk. Nathan typed a quick reply, on my way, and dressed hurriedly. The quiet streets of Eldridge felt different that morning, the air charged with a silent tension. As he approached the park, he spotted Mike and a few others from last night, including Tom and a man he didn't recognize at first, an older gentleman, perhaps in his 60s, with a keen, observant gaze. Morning, Nathan greeted, his eyes settling on the unfamiliar face. Morning, Nathan. This is Harold, Mike introduced. He's retired military, used to work in communications. Thought he might help us make sense of things. Harold extended his hand, his grip firm. Heard you're the history buff, he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, which seemed preoccupied with deeper concerns. Trying to be, Nathan replied. What do you make of last night? Harold glanced around, ensuring no one was within earshot. It's unlike anything we've prepared for. If they are what we think they are, our world's about to get a lot more complicated. Tom, always the analyst, jumped in. But why come here? And why now? It's not like we've sent out invitations. That's what we need to figure out, Harold said, his tone serious. I have a contact, still in the service. He hinted that something big was going down, more than just lights in the sky. They're organizing something, a sort of resistance, but not against what you might think. Resistance? Nathan frowned, puzzled. Are we talking about military action? Not exactly, Harold explained. More like a countermeasure to keep things under control, a network of civilians included. They're recruiting people who can stay calm, think clearly under pressure. People like you, Nathan. Nathan processed this, the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. What's the plan, then? We meet with my contact tonight. He'll give us the lowdown on what they know, what they need from us, Harold replied. The group agreed to reconvene later, dispersing to tend to their daily responsibilities, though with a new, shared purpose. Throughout the day, Nathan felt a mix of anticipation and dread. He had always taught history, discussing the impact of pivotal events on humanity, and now he was walking into one. That evening, under the guise of a casual gathering, they met Harold's contact, a robust, middle-aged woman named Captain Simmons. In the back room of a quiet diner, she laid out the situation. We have reasons to believe that the Zoltrax, what we're calling them, aren't here for conquest, not in the traditional sense. They're infiltrating, quietly integrating into systems, communications, perhaps even our social fabric. And the resistance? Mike asked, his forehead creased with worry. It's about disruption, Simmons answered. Sabotage their efforts subtly. We need to gather information, find their weaknesses, without tipping them off that we're onto them. So, guerrilla warfare without the warfare? Tom suggested. Exactly, Simmons nodded. We need to be ghosts in our own land. Nathan, we want you on board because of your understanding of historical impacts and strategies. You know how societies react, adapt. That's invaluable. Nathan listened, the historian in him fascinated, the citizen terrified. And if we say yes, what then? Then you start training. Learn how to recognize their tech, their methods of communication. We disrupt their surveillance, their data collection, Simmons detailed, her eyes scanning each face for signs of hesitation. Nathan felt the resolve solidifying within him. Looking around at his colleagues, his friends, he recognized the same determination mirrored back at him. All right, he said finally. I'm in. Let's figure out how to haunt our own home. The meeting adjourned with plans to begin their covert operations. As they left the diner, the night felt darker, the stars obscured by clouds and the unknown. Yet, Nathan walked with a firmer step, ready to learn the rules of this new reality, to protect the world he knew and understood. The weeks following their meeting with Captain Simmons were a blur of activity for Nathan and his newfound allies. Each evening, after their day jobs, they would converge on an old warehouse on the outskirts of Eldridge, which Harold had secured for their training. Inside the dimly lit space, cluttered with old furniture and dusty shelves, Nathan and the group were introduced to the basics of espionage and sabotage. They learned how to encrypt their communications, avoid surveillance, and the basics of hacking into computer systems, which were skills Nathan found both exhilarating and daunting. Remember, it's all about patterns, Harold explained one evening, standing before a large whiteboard filled with diagrams and notes. Humans, aliens, it doesn't matter. Everyone has a pattern. Learn theirs, and you can predict, or disrupt, their next move. Nathan stood next to Tom, watching as Mike attempted to bypass a simulated security system set up by Harold. Feels like we're in some spy movie, huh? Tom whispered, his eyes wide with a mix of anxiety and excitement. Except it's real, and there are no second takes, Nathan muttered, his focus on Mike's frustrated attempts to get past the final firewall. Got it, Mike exclaimed finally, a triumphant grin spreading across his face as the computer beeped its compliance. Well done. Harold clapped Mike on the back. You're getting the hang of it. Nathan, you're up. Nathan approached the computer, his hands slightly trembling as he typed in the commands Harold had taught them. He felt a rush of adrenaline as he navigated through the digital defenses, his earlier reservations giving way to a focused determination. As the weeks passed, the group's skills sharpened, and their camaraderie deepened. They were no longer just colleagues. They were comrades in a cause that none of them had anticipated joining. One night, after a particularly grueling session, the group sat around a makeshift table littered with empty coffee cups and takeaway food containers, discussing their progress. We're getting better at this, but I worry it's not fast enough, Mike said, running a hand through his hair. What if they make a move before we're ready? It's a valid concern, Harold acknowledged, leaning back in his chair. But remember, we're not alone in this. There are other groups like ours, all working together. We're part of a network, and every little bit we do adds up. Nathan nodded, his thoughts drifting to the bigger picture. It's like building a puzzle. We might only be a few pieces, but eventually, we'll see the whole image. Speaking of pieces, Tom interjected, I've been working on something. A program that might help us track when their tech communicates back to wherever it comes from. Seriously? Nathan turned to Tom, impressed. That could be a game changer. Have you tested it? Not yet. I need a bit more data, and I was hoping you'd help me with that, Nathan. You've got a knack for seeing the gaps, the missing pieces, Tom said, a respectful tone in his voice. I'd be glad to help, Nathan replied, feeling a swell of pride at the recognition. The conversation drifted then to lighter topics, the group allowing themselves a momentary respite from the gravity of their situation. They joked and laughed, the sound echoing off the warehouse walls, a brief reminder of normalcy. As they wrapped up for the night, Harold stood and looked at each of them. I know this isn't what any of us expected to be doing with our lives, but I can't think of a finer group of people to be facing this with. We're making a difference, believe that. Nathan left the warehouse that night feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges ahead were daunting, yes, but not insurmountable. With each step they took, each skill they mastered, they were moving closer to being a formidable force against the Zoltrax. And in this quiet resistance, Nathan found a strength he hadn't known he possessed. A few nights later, Nathan and Mike found themselves crouched in a dark alley, the chill of the night air biting through their jackets. Their mission was to plant Tom's tracking software in one of the communication hubs the Zoltrax had covertly installed in the city's main library, a nerve center of data they seemed particularly interested in. Are you sure this is going to work? Nathan whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the city's sleeping sounds. It has to, Mike replied, his eyes fixed on the library entrance where a lone security guard made his lazy rounds. Tom's put everything into this. We just need to make sure we install it without leaving a trace. Nathan nodded, checking his watch. Shift change should be in 10 minutes. We move on my mark. The minutes ticked by slowly, each second stretching out as they waited in the shadows. When the time came, they moved with a practiced precision, slipping through the unlocked side door Tom had told them about. Inside, the library was a labyrinth of shadows and silence. Nathan led the way to the server room, his memory tracing steps they had rehearsed numerous times back at the warehouse. Once at the door, Mike pulled out a set of lock picks, his hands steady despite the adrenaline that Nathan knew was coursing through them both. A soft click signaled success, and they slipped inside. The room buzzed with the sound of servers and blinking lights. Mike quickly set up his laptop, connecting it to the mainframe while Nathan kept watch. Almost there, Mike muttered, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Okay, Tom's program is uploading now. Just a few more seconds. Nathan heard footsteps outside the server room and signaled to Mike urgently. We've got company. Mike's eyes widened, and he hit a final key before closing his laptop with a snap. Done. Let's go. They exited just as the door at the end of the hallway opened. Ducking into a row of bookshelves, they watched as the guard walked past, oblivious to the high-stakes drama unfolding mere feet away. Once the guard was gone, they made their way back to the side door, slipping out into the night with a mixture of relief and triumph. Back in the safety of the warehouse, Tom greeted them with anxious excitement. Did it work? Was there any trouble? Mike placed the laptop on the table, booting it up. Your program's in. Now we see if it does what you promised. The group gathered around as the screen came to life, displaying a series of rapidly updating statuses. Then, a map appeared with several pulsing dots. It's working, Tom breathed, a wide grin spreading across his face. We're tracking their communications. This is big. Nathan clapped Tom on the shoulder, proud and relieved. Good work, man. This could give us the edge we need. The atmosphere in the warehouse was electric as they began to analyze the data, the initial fear and uncertainty of their clandestine operations giving way to a focused determination. As the night turned into early morning, Harold, who had been silent for much of the celebration, stepped forward. This is excellent work, but it's just the beginning. We need to be careful, stay sharp, and most of all, stick together. Whatever happens next, we face it as a team. Nathan felt a sense of solidarity with these people who had become more than just allies. They were friends, united by a common goal. As he left the warehouse to catch a few hours of sleep before dawn, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would meet them together. The stakes were high, but they were not alone. The weeks that followed were a testament to the group's hard work and dedication. Nathan and his team had become a well-oiled machine, using Tom's software to disrupt the Zoltrax communications subtly but effectively. However, the weight of their secret lives began to strain even the strongest among them. One particularly damp evening, Nathan sat in Harold's cramped study, maps and digital screens casting a ghostly glow. The mood was tense, as Harold had called an urgent meeting that hinted at unwelcome news. "We've got a problem," Harold began, his eyes scanning the room, settling on each member of the team. "It seems there's been a leak. Our movements have been predicted lately, a little too accurately." Murmurs of concern filled the room, and Mike leaned forward, his brows furrowed. "Are you saying we have a mole?" "I'm not sure, but we can't rule it out," Harold replied gravely. "We need to consider that someone might be feeding information to the Zoltrax." Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. The possibility of betrayal within their tight-knit group was something he had never considered. "What do we do? How do we find out who it is?" "We tighten our operations. Limit who knows the details of each mission," Harold suggested, his voice firm. Tom, who had been quiet, spoke up, his voice shaky. "Could it be a flaw in my software? Maybe they've hacked us?" "It's possible," Harold conceded, turning to Tom. "We need to audit every line of code. If there's a vulnerability, we find it. But in the meantime, we stay alert to any unusual behavior among us." The meeting concluded with the team agreeing to double down on their security measures and verify all recent communications and data for any signs of tampering. In the days that followed, the atmosphere among the group was one of suspicion and caution. Nathan missed the camaraderie they had enjoyed, replaced now by a guarded distance as everyone tried to prove their loyalty. During a routine data analysis session in the warehouse, Nathan noticed Mike kept checking his phone, his demeanor anxious. "Everything okay?" Nathan asked, eyeing his friend with concern. Mike glanced up, a forced smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Yeah, all good. Just family stuff, you know?" But Nathan sensed something was off. He decided to confront Mike later, away from the others. They met under the pretext of grabbing some late-night coffee at a quiet diner. "Mike, you know you can tell me if something's wrong, right?" Nathan pressed, watching his friend closely. Mike sighed, setting down his cup with a slight tremor in his hands. "I didn't want to involve anyone else in this, but I think they might be watching me. My family, I mean. I've noticed strange cars in the neighborhood, odd phone calls. I think it's because of me, because of what we're doing." Nathan's heart sank. The thought of their actions endangering their families was something they had all feared. "We'll figure this out, Mike. We're in this together, remember?" "Yeah," Mike nodded, looking relieved to have shared his burden. "Thanks, Nathan. It means a lot." As they left the diner, Nathan felt the weight of their responsibility heavier than ever. He knew they had to be more careful, not just to protect themselves but their loved ones too. The next day, Nathan brought up his concerns with Harold, suggesting additional counter-surveillance measures they could implement. Harold agreed, commending Nathan's vigilance. "We trust each other, Nathan, but we also verify. That's how we're going to get through this," Harold stated, placing a reassuring hand on Nathan's shoulder. With a renewed sense of purpose, Nathan returned to the group, determined to restore their bond and strengthen their defenses against the Zoltrax threat. The breach of trust had shaken them, but Nathan believed it would ultimately lead to a stronger, more united resistance. The mood was palpably tense in the warehouse as Nathan convened a critical strategy meeting. With the recent escalation in surveillance and the potential threat to their families becoming more pronounced, the stakes were higher than ever. "We need a new approach," Nathan declared, his voice echoing slightly off the bare walls. "Our tactics so far have been effective to an extent, but it's not enough. We need to think bigger, make a significant impact." Harold nodded in agreement, folding his arms. "You're talking about going on the offensive." "Exactly," Nathan said. "I've been thinking about the communication hub we've been monitoring. What if we could introduce a virus into their system? Something that doesn't just disrupt, but cripples their ability to operate on Earth. Tom leaned forward, intrigued. I like where this is going. I can start working on a virus, but we'll need a way to deliver it directly into their mainframe. It's risky. That's not even the half of it, Mike added, his face serious. Getting inside that hub will be a nightmare. Security will be tight. We have something they don't expect, Nathan countered, his gaze sweeping across his trusted team. Determination and a cause worth fighting for. We do this carefully, plan every detail. Harold, your contacts in the military could provide us with a distraction. Harold rubbed his chin, pondering. I might know a few folks who owe me a favor. But this is big, Nathan. We're talking about a major operation here. It's a necessary risk, Nathan argued, his eyes alight with a fierce determination. If we pull this off, we could set their plans back by years, maybe even push them to leave. The team mulled over the plan, weighing the dangers and the potential monumental gains. After a lengthy discussion, they agreed to move forward, each person committed to their role. Over the next few weeks, Tom worked relentlessly on the virus, coding and recoding to ensure it would do exactly what was needed. Nathan and Mike focused on logistics, mapping out every inch of the area surrounding the alien hub, while Harold made discreet inquiries to arrange the necessary diversions. The night of the operation arrived with a new moon, cloaking their movements in darkness. The team gathered for one last briefing, checking their equipment and going over the plan one final time. We know what we need to do, Nathan said, looking each member in the eye. Let's get it done. They split into groups. Tom and Nathan headed for the mainframe access, while Mike and Harold worked on setting up external disruptions to cover their entry. The infiltration was tense, with every shadow and sound magnified in their heightened state of alert. Tom carried the laptop containing the virus, while Nathan led the way, using the skills he had honed over months of training. Reaching the mainframe room, Tom set up his equipment, his hands flying over the keyboard. This is it, he whispered, initiating the virus upload. Outside, Harold and Mike managed to execute their part without a hitch, drawing security away from the mainframe area just long enough for Tom to complete his work. Virus is in, Tom finally breathed, a triumphant grin breaking through the tension. Then let's move out, Nathan urged, leading the way back to their rendezvous point. As they made their escape, the first signs of chaos began to emerge within the alien hub. Alarms blared, and lights flashed as their systems faltered under the strain of Tom's virus. Back at the warehouse, the team watched live feeds from various news outlets, showing the disarray at the alien hub. It was clear that their mission had been a success. We did it, Nathan said, allowing a rare smile to spread across his face. We actually did it. The team erupted into subdued cheers, aware that the road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, they felt a glimmer of real hope. This is just the beginning, Nathan said, his voice steady and sure. But tonight, we celebrate our victory. Tomorrow, we plan our next move. As they gathered around, a sense of unity and purpose binding them, they knew they had turned a significant corner in their fight. The battle was far from over, but they had proven they could strike a decisive blow against a seemingly invincible foe. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the warehouse as the team gathered around a cluttered table, maps and digital screens illuminating their tired but triumphant faces. The aftermath of their successful operation had not only disrupted the alien systems, but had ignited a wave of similar actions globally. Nathan, feeling the weight of their achievements and the challenges yet to come, addressed the group with a newfound sense of leadership. Last night we set a precedent. What we've started here is just the beginning. Reports are coming in from all over. Others have taken up the cause. We've shown it's possible. Harold leaned in, his veteran eyes keen with strategic thought. We've got them reeling, but they'll regroup. We need to take advantage of this momentum. Expand our network, share our tactics. Agreed. Mike chimed in, his voice firm. But we also need to stay one step ahead. Now that they know what we're capable of, they'll adapt their strategies. Tom, who had been reviewing data on a laptop, looked up. I think I can help with that. The virus collected data before it went down. I have information on their communication protocols, maybe even some clues to their next moves. Nathan nodded appreciatively. Good work, Tom. Let's analyze that data. See if we can't predict their countermeasures. As they delved into the information, a plan began to form. A series of coordinated strikes designed to keep the aliens off balance while they strengthened their global network. Hours turned into days as the group worked tirelessly, their initial victory fueling their resolve. They contacted other resistance cells, sharing their successes and failures, learning from each encounter. One evening, as they gathered to review the progress of their allies around the world, Nathan felt a rare moment of peace. "Look at what we've started," he said, gazing around at his team, his friends. "From this small town, we've sparked a global resistance. Whatever happens next, we've changed the course of history." Harold, always the realist, added, "And we'll keep changing it. We're not just defenders anymore, we're catalysts. But remember, the Zoltrax aren't just going to leave. We need to keep pushing, keep fighting." Mike stood, stretching his back, a smile playing on his lips. "Then let's keep pushing. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not ready to stop now. Not when we're finally making a difference." The group's determination was palpable, each member ready to take on whatever challenges came next. They were no longer just a band of rebels. They were leaders in a global movement. As they prepared for the next phase of their operations, Nathan took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. From a history teacher with a routine life to a leader in a global resistance, he had undergone a transformation that was nothing short of revolutionary. "Tomorrow, we go again," Nathan declared, his voice resolute. "We've shown them Earth is not theirs for the taking. This planet, our home, is defended." And with that, they set about planning their next actions. The Zoltrax would surely come back with new strategies, but so would they. With each step, they adapted, grew stronger, and more connected. The fight for Earth was far from over, but they had made it clear they were a force to be reckoned with. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the warehouse, Nathan looked out over the town of Eldridge, its streets quiet but no longer peaceful in the naive way they once were. They were a community on the brink of great change, part of a world united by a common enemy and a shared hope for freedom. This story of resistance, of ordinary people rising to meet extraordinary challenges, would continue, each day writing a new page in the annals of human history.